The committee will come to order. The chair notes the presence of a quorum. Pursuant to committee rules, members of the committee may submit written opening statements. For the record, I ask that members may revise and extend the remarks on the bills to be considered at this markup and have those remarks included in the record. Without objection, so ordered. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare recess of the committee at any time. Pursuant to Committee Rule 3I, the chair announces that he may postpone further proceedings today on the question of approving any measure or matter or adopting an amendment on which a recorded vote is ordered. I now recognize myself for an opening statement. Good morning, and thank you for joining us for the full committee markup. Today we're considering two bills under regular order. Both of them work to secure the future of domestic mining in our country. And it's no secret that the U.S. has become dependent on imported critical minerals as a result of public policy decisions that undermine investment and development of our own domestic supplies. Critical minerals like copper and cobalt are essential for national security, for energy security, for industrial competitiveness, and economic growth across every sector. Our modern world, every new technological advancement, from cutting-edge artificial intelligence to the smartphones in our pockets, deepens our increases for our demand for critical minerals. One thing is clear: to reduce our foreign dependence, we must increase the domestic mining of critical minerals. The first step in that process is permitting reform. Right now, it takes 19 years on average to bring a new mine into operation in the United States. Permitting reform would fix this. Reforms under FAST 41 have made some improvements to federal agency coordination and the timeliness of environmental reviews. However, we must continue to remove the red tape and address the endless litigation surrounding critical infrastructure projects. To see this necessity, one doesn't have to look very far. Last month, after 12 years of lawsuits and delays, the Resolution copper mine cleared the final hurdle. The mine, which will strengthen our domestic copper supply chain and support good-paying jobs, spent over a decade in permitting purgatory because of endless lawsuits and delays. Delays in permitting drive up cost, halt economic growth, stifle American innovation, and further increase our reliance on foreign adversaries for critical minerals. We are at a crucial point in history. The decisions we make today will help determine whether the U.S. will continue to lead the world in technological advancement and economic prosperity, or allow our adversaries to fill that void. Today's regular order bills help us choose the path to unleash domestic mining. The Protecting Domestic Mining Act of 2025, introduced by Representative Shreve, will codify mining as a covered sector under the FAST Act and ensure its coverage for mining projects in the future. But mining is only part of a domestic mineral supply chain. As many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle frequently point out, our country needs domestic processing facilities for minerals that we mine here. My ANS modifies Mr. Shreve's bill to include mineral processing and expedite permitting for these facilities to more fully develop our mineral supply chains. Representative Barr's Critical Mineral Supply Chain Resiliency Act would add actions taken by the Secretary of War under the Defense Production Act of 1950 to the list of covered projects eligible for FAST 41, expedited permitting. Passage of these two bills will provide predictability for regulators and producers and encourage development of our own domestic supply chains. To my colleagues who believe we must counter China's mineral processing capability and produce minerals domestically, vote for these bills to help ensure that our minerals are made in America. Finally, we will consider 6 unanimous consent bills on which we have reached bipartisan agreement. The bills showcase the range of the committee's jurisdiction, from supporting the U.S. fishing industry against illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, and requiring annual competitive geothermal lease sales, to supporting critical water infrastructure and strengthening the American Battlefield Protection Program as we celebrate our nation's 250th birthday. Again, I want to thank the sponsoring members for their work on these hard bills. I look forward to discussions today, and I yield back. I now recognize the ranking member for an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today's markup is another example of our Republican friends using this committee to push permitting shortcuts for multinational mining corporations instead of doing the hard work of advancing responsible, balanced mineral policy, the kind of policy this moment demands. We can all agree that we have been over-reliant on our adversaries for critical minerals for too long. we should be able to agree that environmental destruction and the history of human rights abuses tied to the mining industry are also unacceptable practices that have to be considered and corrected. As demand for these minerals increases, we must prioritize American security, sustainability, and human rights throughout the supply chain, and we need to be strategic. We can and must meet our country's needs while minimizing harm and actually benefiting communities. But the Trump administration and Republican leadership in Congress has been focusing more on creating loopholes and giveaways to multi-billion-dollar corporations that actually are part of the problem rather than solving the problem. The hallmark of these efforts, of course, is breathtaking corruption and grift. This administration continues to announce new deals to take equity stakes in companies behind closed doors and to issue massive Defense Production Act grants to sometimes questionable companies and projects, and they just coincidentally keep enriching Trump family members and MAGA cronies. There are huge questions around the Export-Import Bank's $12 billion project vault, among other examples. The brazen grift and self-dealing that we are seeing makes Teapot Dome look like a quaint affair, whether it is President Trump's own son, Secretary Lutnick's sons, or major campaign donors. Democrats are asking hard questions about these things. Our Republican colleagues here in Congress are just looking away, and the administration is silent in the face of these questions, almost like the Trump administration has something to hide. Now, I am extremely reluctant right now about handing this administration any more power to tip the scales further. One of the bills that we'll debate today would codify mining as a covered sector under FAST 41. And that Title 41 of the FAST Act created an alternative permitting system for covered infrastructure projects. Covered projects can be part of 18 specific sectors, including energy production, surface transportation, semiconductors, and more. And mining is currently considered a covered sector by a regulation adopted during the first Trump administration, but not by statute. FAST 41 permitting process includes some positive transparency provisions, such as a centralized public platform that tracks federal permitting timelines and milestones, but it also places some limits on public input and judicial review, including court-ordered protections. And my concern here around the experience of the communities that have dealt with these projects firsthand informs my view of this legislation. In May of 2023, the first mining project to be permitted under FAST 41 was added to the dashboard. It was the Hermosa project in the Patagonia Mountains, southeast of Tucson, Arizona, in Representative Adelita Grijalva's district. And her constituents have continued to express significant concerns about deficiencies in the permitting process, about the project's potential significant impacts on the area's scarce water resources and its renowned biodiversity. The community has advocated for significantly more transparency and cooperation through the FAST 41 process, but they haven't received that. The community would tell you, and Congresswoman Adelita Grijalva will tell you, that they feel like guinea pigs, the first to go through this process, and they haven't seen enough benefit to merit the compressed permitting process. Now, the Biden administration at least attempted to narrow the mining industry's broad eligibility to just critical minerals and to include important downstream processing in their review. Unfortunately, that rule was never finalized, and in fact, the Trump administration has proceeded to fast-track entirely uncritical minerals, gold mines, with unclear benefits to Americans as a whole. I stand ready to work with my colleagues on this issue to secure our mineral supply chain so we can be prepared for the clean energy transition and support other critical priorities. But we have to listen to these communities, and we have to be more thoughtful and strategic as we go forward. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Pursuant to the markup notice, it is now in order to consider H.R. 1501, the Protecting Domestic Mining Act of 2025. Ask unanimous consent that the Subcommittee on Energy and Mineral Resources be discharged from further consideration of the bill. Without objection, so ordered. Without objection, the bill will be considered as read and open to amendment at any point. Does any member wish to be recognized for purpose of debate on the bill? Mr. Stauber, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, confirming Representative Shreve's 1501, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to rise in strong support of H.R. 1501, the Protecting Domestic Mining Act of 2025, which will ensure domestic mining projects are able to enjoy the benefits of Title 41 of the bipartisan and wildly successful FAST Act. The FAST Act has been used to permit and build countless projects that are necessary for our country's national and economic security. And under the Trump administration, mining projects have been eligible. By codifying mining and mineral processing projects, we will ensure that these important projects are able to enjoy this benefit, no matter if we have a pro-mining president like President Trump in office or an anti-mining president like President Biden in office. My district in northern Minnesota is home to proposed projects like the New Range Copper Nickel Project, which is enjoying the benefits of Fast 41 as a transparency list project. And I'm excited that New Range will soon have the full benefits of Fast 41 when it reapplies for its Clean Water Act permit in the coming weeks. And now that the United States Senate has acted on my CRA resolution that overturns the Biden administration's northern Minnesota mining ban, I look forward to additional projects which will finally have the opportunity to move forward in the permitting process, will be able to benefit from Fast 41. This is a great benefit not only for these projects or for northern Minnesota, but a benefit for our entire nation and our strategic national mineral security. By passing Representative Shreve's legislation, we will provide greater certainty during the permitting process and ensure that we will be able to continue to benefit from Fast 41, no matter who occupies the White House next. I urge my colleagues to join me in support of this legislation, and Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Is there further discussion? Mr. Huffman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I oppose this legislation. Now, the original FAST Act, Title 41 of the FAST Act, created a fast-track permitting process for infrastructure projects, and mining was not included in that program's original statute. It was added in later by regulation in the waning days of the first Trump administration, and I opposed that move at the time because mining projects are often the most environmentally damaging industry projects, especially when they're poorly planned. They are simply not a good fit for fast-track permitting procedures. If you're going to do mining right, it takes time. It takes a lot of care and thoughtful attention to impacted communities, and it takes thorough tribal consultation, among other things. Working with those communities is meaningless if there's not flexibility and a genuine responsiveness to their concerns. And unfortunately, in the case of mining, we have an underlying permitting law, the mining law of 1872, that simply does not set up for success in a streamlined permitting context. The mining law of 1872 was built on the principle that a miner can claim any open federal land they want, that it is their right to mine it, no matter what, no matter who they may harm along the way. And it has left a trail of destruction in its wake all over the West, with tribal communities bearing the brunt of the impacts. Now, I understand mining is important. We do need some new mining. I acknowledge that. We also need guardrails. I also acknowledge that Fast 41 can come with some benefits. The increased transparency is one of the most important ones, and some additional resources for local governments as well. The transparency is especially important compared to the administration's so-called emergency permitting process that it's trying to rush some projects through in as little as 14 days. But there are also some tangible downsides of the Fast 41 process. And to build an industry that can be sustained over decades, and certainly across different administrations with different politics, we really do need to make sure we get this right. As we've heard from the communities who are working through the Fast 41 process for mines right now, in their experience, we need to do a lot better. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Is there further discussion? I recognize myself. I do support H.R. 1501, sponsored by Representative Shreve, which extends Fast 41 eligibility to mining and mineral processing. Last week, the Senate passed Mr. Stauber's H.J. Res. 140, which reverses a Biden-era land withdrawal that had locked up the world-class mineral resources of Minnesota's Duluth complex. This action represents a historic milestone in the effort to secure domestic mineral supply chains, and it should be celebrated by Americans across the country. However, much work remains to be done. Companies interested in mining domestic mineral resources still face uncertain permitting timelines and seemingly endless bureaucracy. The Trump administration has been working to expedite mining projects through the FAST Act authorities, which authorized the FAST 41 permitting dashboard to maximize transparency and efficiency in the permitting process. In just over a year, 15 mining operations have been permitted through the FAST 41 dashboard. This impressive record stands in stark contrast to that of the Biden administration, which across 4 years permitted exactly 0 new mines through the FAST 41 program. Given their immense importance to our economic and national security interests, all mining projects should be eligible for streamlined permitting under the FAST Act. Mr. Shreve's bill, the Protecting Domestic Mining Act, makes that common sense vision a reality. But mining is only one part of a mineral supply chain. As we've all noted, our country also needs domestic processing facilities for minerals that we mine here. The bill, which was amended by my ANS, will give them an opportunity to put their votes where the rhetoric is. My ANS will modify Mr. Shreve's bill to extend FAST 41 coverage to mineral processing, to expedite permitting for those facilities, and to more fully develop mineral supply chains. This common sense legislation will reverse harmful Biden-era policies that have thwarted domestic mining. By securing domestic mineral supply chains, the bill will reduce America's vulnerability to serious geopolitical threats. I again want to thank Representative Shreve for his hard work on this legislation, which will bring speed and transparency to permitting processes for a crucial sector of our economy. With that, I urge my colleagues to support H.R. 1501, and I yield back. Is there further discussion?
Mr. Chair.
You're recognized.
I'm just so used to being in the Rules Committee with Virginia. Thank you so very much, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to respond to something that was raised by you as well as Representative Stauber, and that is the fact that the Senate did move forward on allowing mining near the boundary waters. And we had fought that really forcefully because in the Rules Committee, I asked Mr. Stauber, where will this material go? After mining in the boundary waters where any mistake, because of the mining that is going to be done, could have devastating impacts because of the way the elements are diffused in water.
Would the gentleman
I
yield?
will, when I am done. And I asked him, where will this material go? He didn't want to answer the question, but in the end, he had to. It's going to China. That's where it'll be processed. And it doesn't matter that you say, oh, we want it to be different today. That is what is happening. And we are doing nothing, every chance we have, to do something to prevent China from getting access to our precious minerals that they are able to do under the law now for free. So we keep making it easier. Every time we have a chance to rein in China or North Korea, Russia, or Iran, this committee says now is not the time. And I want to bring that up. It broke my heart to see that this happened and that those boundary waters are now at risk, especially given where that mining material is headed for processing. And with that, Mr. Stauber, I'll yield your time because I think you already spoke, so I'll give you some time.
Thank you, Representative Ledger-Fernandez, and I appreciate your comments. I do want to correct the record. You made the statement there's mining in the boundary waters.
I said near the boundary waters.
Then I must have misheard you. You know there's going to be no mining in the boundary waters, correct?
Well, I think the waters are all connected, so the definition, I said near the boundary waters, and I
And
think
there's going to
that,
be no, and there's going to be no mining in the buffer zone as well.
okay, do the waters connect each other
So,
upstream?
my-
So are the waters connected?
My question is, you know there's going to be no mining in the boundary waters. There's going to be no mining in the buffer zone. And for those listening, the Superior National Forest is a working industrial forest where mining and timber harvesting are desired activities. I would ask you just one question. What mine are you talking about that has the permits?
Well, you have now removed the ability to prevent permits, and you have yourself said, you answered the question, is if there is going to be a mine here, where is the material going? And that's the question I was asking, is what protections are we putting in place to protect the waters that lead, because as far as I know, water flows. And that's what happens is when water flows downstream, and if it is contaminated, it contaminates the waters downstream. And that is the kind of protection that we were seeking by opposing your
If you would just indulge
overturning
me.
the CRA.
First off, I appreciate the time and I appreciate our conversation. I asked what mining company is going to mine there.
Well, the question, I'll ask you. You answered the question when I asked you on Rules Committee, where will this material go? And you said, do you remember what you said?
Yeah,
What did you say?
I said some of it may go to China. The mine plan of operation, I think you're referring to Twin Metals. I don't know how you can be so sure because the mine plan of operation hasn't come forward yet. And it still has to, any mine or helium project must go through the rigorous permitting standards both on the federal and the state level. It still has to go through there. So I hope you support the permitting process and have trust in the permitting process.
So under this administration, I don't trust the permitting process, honestly. And I think that's the concern, is we have seen this administration not be very supportive of environmental regulations, and my time has expired, so I can no longer yield you time because mine has expired. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Gentlelady's time has expired. Is there further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Fulcher, you're recognized.
thank you. I'd like to yield some time to Mr. Stauber.
Thank you very much. I think that my good friend and colleague, we are in a different spectrum on this particular issue. We have talked about, the anti-mining groups, Mr. Chair, have talked about mining in the boundary waters. I want the people to know there's never mining in the boundary waters or the buffer zone. This CRA, which passed, you still need the permitting process at both the federal and the state level. No project is green-lighted whatsoever. What this did is reverse the dangerous and illegal mining ban that the Biden administration put forward in the biggest copper nickel find in the world. It still has to go through the permitting process. It still has to, both at the federal and the state level. And by the way, my good friend, Ms. Ledger Fernandez, you're going to have an opportunity to support the processing in this country because that's where we're moving towards. You have to be able to mine first, and then the processing comes after. You can't build a processing center or centers in the United States or refining centers without mining happening first. You have to have the mining first. Mining comes first, processing comes second. And I yield.
Representative Stauber, before you yield, since I yielded you time,
Yes,
I
fair
think
enough.
it's, and you have just, oh my God, can we stay arguing for another 3 minutes and 32 seconds? I do appreciate the debate, and this just closed on me, but I think that it is within the boundaries of the watershed of the boundary waters, and I think that that's key. It's within the watershed, and I need to tell you, I come from New Mexico. Water is so precious there. We call it water is life, but there is nowhere I think in the world where you don't call water life, because you realize how important it is, how precious it is, and how fragile it is. So I know water. I worked on water before I came to the United States. Water does not respect a boundary line. It doesn't say, oh, now I'm in the wilderness area, now I'm not. Anything that is waterborne will move from one area to the other, and that is what the concern is. So to start making these sort of rigid definitions of it's not within the actual wilderness area, that does not address the fact that that water is not going to stop flowing across that jurisdictional line. And thank you for yielding, and I return.
I appreciate this. I got 2 minutes left. You support the permitting process. I'm assuming you support the permitting process?
I mentioned earlier that I believe that right at this present moment, I do not trust the Trump administration with the permitting process, because they've made it very clear that they're going to do everything they can to favor mining corporations, to favor oil and gas corporations. They were willing to pay $1 billion to a French corporation just so they would not build a wind farm.
We can't
like that's the kind of actions that you leave out. They have worked to eliminate. You asked me a question.
Reclaiming my time. We have to not allow the Chinese Communist Party to dictate critical minerals and their processing any longer. This administration is the most pro-mining administration in the history of this country. We have to secure our critical minerals. Minnesota, the Iron Range is a powerhouse, and we're going to continue to do that. We've been mining on the Iron Range for 146 years, mining the iron ore that makes over 80% of this nation's steel in northern Minnesota. And the cleanest water in northern Minnesota is Buell water. It comes right out of the ground. We drink it right out of the ground in the heart of mining country. We know how to do it. We're going to do it right, and we're going to help this country strategically take care of our critical minerals and not allow China to dominate in a yield.
Mr. Stauber, will you yield for a question?
Yes, I will.
So you talked about the open pit mining for iron ore and the clean water. What kind of mining, if a mine were approved, what kind of mining would the copper mines be in Minnesota?
Well, I think that Representative Ledger-Fernandez has, it's going to be an underground mine between 400 to 4,000 feet. What I'm hearing is going to be dry stack tailings, which is 21st century mining, and we have the technology to do that.
Thank you. Gentlemen, time has expired. Is there further discussion? Mr. Soto, you're recognized.
Thank you so much, and I yield to our esteemed ranking member.
I thank the gentleman. We are having some adventures in gaslighting right now. And so I want to ask Ranking Member Ledger-Fernandez a question. I mean, we're having a debate in the context of legislation that is essentially saying that the mining industry, despite its horrific record throughout history of leaving all sorts of destruction and waste and pollution in its wake, despite all of the corruption and grift that we've come to associate with this industry, that we should trust them with the gift of streamlined permitting, that we should place them in this position of trust as if everything's going to be just fine. And, you know, if for an industry that's asking for trust, to have their champion continue to say stuff like, well, there won't be mining inside the boundary waters, it speaks to a little problem, I think, that we have in this moment. So Ranking Member Ledger-Fernandez, tell me if I got this wrong, but the proposed twin metal mine is just upstream from the boundary waters, right?
Right, and that's the issue of to say it's not in the boundary waters. It's in the waters that make up the because remember the boundary waters is the designation of the wilderness,
yeah.
Right? And so I don't know that anybody has ever gone to a lake. Anybody gone to a lake and looked at that lake and said, oh, but there is a jurisdictional line right there, no problem. I can pollute on this side of the jurisdictional line because it's not going to affect the other side. Anybody who knows water, you have filled up your tub with water. And sometimes,
And that is sort of the point I think that we need to sharpen, amazingly, in the context of this debate. We were just told that there's been decades and decades of mining in the Iron Range of Minnesota. It's all been done safely and cleanly. You know what? There hasn't been copper-nickel mining. Copper-nickel mining is what Twin Metals is all about, this huge mine that's going to be proposed just upstream from America's most visited wilderness, the Boundary Waters. Copper-nickel mines have a 100% leakage record. Every single copper-nickel mine in our known history has polluted. It's leaked. Things always go wrong. And so my question to you, Ms. Ledger-Fernandez, is when, not if, but when the Twin Metals copper-nickel mine leaks and pollutes, as we know it will, where's that going to go?
I think that would be a question to ask Representative Stauber, like, where is it going to go? Because it's clear
Okay,
where
I
it is.
will.
It's
I
clear
mean,
where it's
Mr.
going to go. I mean, anybody who knows how water works, especially if it's heading downstream,
Mr.
it's gonna
Stauber,
go.
when this mine pollutes, as 100% of the copper-nickel mines throughout history have done, is there anything to magically stop it at the boundaries of America's most visited wilderness? Have you developed a jurisdictional stop on that pollution as it flows down the river?
Mr. Ranking Member, you talk about gaslighting. You are.
What did I get wrong?
You are the
Give
champion.
me one fact that I
you're
got
the-
wrong.
You're the
one
champion
fact
of
that I got
gaslighting.
wrong.
You're,
Give me one fact.
You're gaslighting, and you know it.
Okay, well, you can throw terms, but give me a fact. I told you the facts you got wrong.
You're gaslighting again.
All right, I'm going to reclaim my time.
There's a permitting process they're
I'm
going to
reclaiming
go
my time.
through.
We've heard enough
If
industry
you ask
puppets
me a
speak
question, I have
on
to have
this,
the ability
and
to
so
answer
I
it.
reclaim
So
my
you're
time,
gaslighting
urge a
everybody.
no vote.
It has
This
to go
is
through
not
the
a moment
it
to
has to go
trust
through the
an
permitting
industry that
process.
can't tell the
Both
truth.
the
Meeting will
federal
come to
permitting
order.
I
and
will
the
say
state permitting
there is-
process.
the
It's got to
question
go
is
through the
what-
permitting process, both the
I'm
federal
going
and
to
the state.
reclaim, I think I'm the one who said, you asked me a question, I had the time. But let's make it really clear, because he had asked me a question, so he had yielded to me, so I had the time, and I think staff is saying yes. So we have 50 seconds left. The science is showing that when you have a leak, that it will then flow down into river discharge and aquifer discharge, because it's both. And yes, the mine is going to be underground, but the problem is leakage and discharges of this acid and these heavy metals doesn't stay underground. It goes into the watershed. And I come from a watershed that had these kinds of problems. Copper should be mined in places that aren't connected to water. It's not like you can't mine them, but be careful. And for that, I think what goes to the actual science of your question, and with that, I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Young lady's time has expired. Mr. Hurd, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to yield my time to the gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Stauber.
Gentleman's recognized.
Thank you very much. Spirited discussion. The Ontario, Canada built a mine in the Rainier River watershed, same watershed. It's a Rainier River gold mine, and they built it in 3 years. And the opportunities that arise, not only in Minnesota, but across this nation. My good friend said we can't mine copper there. The good Lord blessed us in Minnesota, in many states in this nation, with these critical minerals that we're going to mine responsibly. We demand permitting both at the state and the federal level. And in one of these cases, Twin Metals referred to, there's a project labor agreement in it, and that means there's going to be union labor. Approximately 3 million person hours of union labor are going to help build this mine. Currently we have 600 miners out of a job, and this is going to give them an opportunity to, as American workers, to mine these critical minerals, to build this plant. And I'm looking forward to the process to start. As I've said before, there's some that believe mining should happen anywhere but America, any worker but the American worker. The opportunities we have are before us. We cannot allow the communist country of China to dominate within critical minerals. Minnesota is going to answer the bell. We are going to lead in this mining of critical minerals, just like we are continuing to lead in the mining of iron ore that makes over 80% of the steel in this great nation. We have the opportunity to do it, and we're going to do it right. We have the 21st century technology, and the technology within the mining arena gets better and better and better every year. I was in Greens Creek mine in Alaska. I saw a 20-some-year-old miner with that drilling equipment following the silver in that mine perfectly and doing it the right way. We can have both. It can be a win-win for our strategic national security and the workers, and of course, the environment. We know how to do it in Minnesota. We demand it. This is my backyard. My CRA passed the House in a bipartisan fashion, and it passed the Senate last week, despite my two federal U.S. senators opposing it, actively whipping against it. I'm proud of the Senate for passing it, and I'm looking forward to President Trump signing this important CRA into law so we can move forward and start mining these critical minerals, not just talking about it, not just saying how important mining is, and then when you have the opportunity to support it, you don't. Mr. Chair, I appreciate your leadership. I appreciate my colleagues' leadership within the mining space. I know that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, have different views on this, but the representative from northern Minnesota, I am unwavering in my support for mining and the men and women that are going to do this and the families that need these on average $135,000 a year jobs. This is real good paying union jobs that I will stand and support, and I yield back.
Mr. Chair, I have a unanimous consent request.
Mr. Chair, and I
Still, Mr.
yield
Hurd,
the remainder of my time back as well.
The gentleman's yielded back. Do you have a request?
Yeah, but Mr. Chair, I request unanimous consent to enter into the record December 13, 2013 report entitled Technical Memorandum, Twin Metals Mining in the Botany Waters, Canoe Area Wilderness Risk Assessment for Underground Metals Mining, which focused on the essential facts demonstrating why copper nickel mining from sulfide ores threatens irreparable harm to priceless northern forest ecosystems, done by Dr. Tom Myers.
Without objection, so ordered. Further discussion on the bill? Mr. Beggett, you're recognized.
You know, we're talking about the track record of mining today as part of this discussion. You know, civilization itself is the track record of mining. We sit in a chamber that is the track record of mining. We have cell phones in front of us that are the track record of mining. We got here today in vehicles that are the track record of mining. And when we talk about the track record, I think we need to make sure that we recognize that the track record of mining makes civilization, the world that we exist in today, possible. We hear so much from our colleagues across the aisle about the energy transition. Well, according to most estimates, that transition and the normal economic growth that we're going to see in the next 50 years is going to require more copper to be mined than has been mined in the history of human civilization. We can't get to that outcome without mining. And if we're going to do mining, we should do it where we know that it's done best. We know that it's done best here in the United States. And so for folks like myself who care about the environment, we need to make sure that the mining is done where the environmental rules are in existence and they're enforced, and that's in the United States. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, it's now in order to consider amendments to H.R. 1501. We will now consider the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 1501 offered by the chair, designated Westerman 66 A&S, Without objection, the amendment is considered read and open to amendment at any point. I now recognize myself. And as I mentioned in the legislative hearing for this bill, it is common sense that mineral processing, in addition to mining itself, should be eligible for Fast 41 expedited permitting. And as Mr. Begich alluded to, every single thing in this room that you can touch was either grown or mined. Even the electrons that are emitting the light out of the light fixtures depend on mining. We cannot move forward as a civilization without mining more, and recycling is important to that. But as Mr. Begich mentioned, just in copper alone, it's estimated we need to mine more copper in the next couple of decades than we've mined in the history of the world. If the United States is going to achieve critical mineral dominance, then we must mine here and refine here, and then after that, hopefully we will manufacture here, because we've exported all of that, or a big part of that, overseas. And another thing about mining is you're actually releasing the wealth of the earth. And if we're depending on other countries to mine, refine, and process and manufacture, and then we purchase those goods, not only are we doing harm to the environment, we're also exporting the wealth of this nation to other nations. My amendment to the A&S accomplishes the objective of assuring that we don't just extract minerals in the U.S., but they can be processed here as well. I urge my colleagues to support the A&S and the underlying bill, and I yield back. Is there further discussion on the A&S?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Stauber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to briefly rise in support of the ANS HR 1501, and specifically want to point out how the ANS strengthens the underlying bill by, among other things, adding mineral processing projects to the list of covered projects under the FAST Act. As my friend and colleague from New Mexico, Representative Ledger Fernandez, will likely recall, as she spoke briefly about it moments ago, she and I had a very spirited debate in the Rules Committee just this January on this very topic. I think she and I are in full agreement that in addition to upstream mining capacity, we need to expand our mineral processing capacity here in the United States. By adding mineral processing to the list of covered projects under the FAST Act, we will bring additional domestic mineral processing online, which again, my good friend from New Mexico and I both agree is imperative. Accordingly, I urge Representative Ledger Fernandez and all of my colleagues on the committee to join me in supporting this ANS and the underlying bill, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Is there further discussion on the A&S? If there's no further discussion on the amendment, it is now in order to consider amendments to the A&S to H.R. 1501. We will now consider the amendment designated Huffman number 2, offered by Ranking Member Huffman. Without objection, the amendment is considered read. Ranking Member Huffman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a common sense and straightforward amendment. It would limit what is codified as a covered section, a covered sector under FAST 41 to just critical minerals. And it would strike Section 3 of the bill. Section 3 prevents anyone from finalizing, implementing, or enforcing the Biden administration's proposed rule relating to the scope of mining under FAST 41, under the FAST Act. And just as a reminder, the Biden administration proposed a rule that would limit the sector's eligibility to critical minerals and expand it to include downstream critical mineral supply chain activities like processing and recycling. Now, first off, by expanding the scope of the sector beyond just critical minerals, the Trump administration is giving a massive benefit to mining projects that don't benefit our country as a whole. Without my amendment, a gold mine, which is not and has never been critical, could otherwise take resources away from a recycling and processing project that produces lithium, cobalt, and rare earth minerals that we actually need. FAST 41 was designed to support priority projects, not everything. Even if some disagree with parts of the process, I think we should all be able to agree that if everything is a priority, then nothing is a priority. If we all have the same goal, which should be to shore up our critical mineral supply chains and reduce our reliance on our adversaries for these minerals that are essential to our economy, we should have some discipline here, and they should be able to support my amendment. Finally, I just want to ask, this bill is called the Protecting Domestic Mining Act. What is the sponsor really trying to protect the domestic mining sector from? A common sense Biden regulation to add processing and recycling and to make sure that any permitting benefits are focused on the minerals we actually need and not just everything. I don't think we need protection from that. I think that was good policy direction. I don't interpret Section 3 as preventing a future administration from working on a new regulation, but it is worth clarifying that it is not the intent of Congress that that happens. So at the end of the day, this bill, as we've said, is just a dig at a Biden administration policy. I would think we had better things to do, but I would also hope that we would support this amendment to make this bill a little bit better. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Is there further discussion? I recognize myself. I do oppose the amendment because limiting Fast 41 eligibility exclusively to minerals on the critical minerals list could create future uncertainty for developers. For instance, what if permitting starts under one USGS critical minerals list and that list is changed in the middle of the permitting process? Then you're back to a loophole to allow outside groups to stop mining from happening. We need to create more certainty in the permitting process, and basing a statute on something that could change with a different administration only creates uncertainty. So I oppose the amendment. I urge my colleagues to oppose the amendment, and I yield back. Is there further discussion on the amendment? If there's no further discussion on the amendment, the questions on the amendment offered by Ranking Member Huffman, designated Huffman number 2. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The opinion of the chair, the noes have it. A recorded vote is requested. Further proceedings on this amendment will be postponed. We will now consider the amendment designated Ledger Fernandez number 1, offered by the gentlewoman from New Mexico, Ms. Ledger Fernandez. Without objection, the amendment is considered read. Ms. Ledger Fernandez, you're now recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My amendment basically prohibits a mining project from qualifying for Fast 41 permitting if it is owned by a foreign entity of concern or a subsidiary of a foreign entity of concern. It's pretty simple. This bill basically offers a benefit to mining companies. And we should not offer that benefit to our enemies. We should not offer that benefit to China, to North Korea, to Russia, or to Iran. I mean, those are our enemies, right? We kind of know who they are. And I have offered this amendment 7 times. Every time you bring a bill dealing with mining, I suggest that we follow Representative Molinar's proposal to limit foreign influence of our adversaries in our mining, in every single bill. And every single time I bring it, this committee says, oh, no, it won't work. Sorry, we can't do it now, maybe later. So I am going to keep bringing these kinds of amendments until this committee decides that we should not be putting China first. We should be putting them second, third, or fourth. But you keep doing that. You keep refusing to take the steps to say, in this instance, no. And you come up with these ideas of saying, oh, but if we did that, then China could control it. It's like the convoluted pretzels you put yourselves in to try to say that if we say China can't do this, then we won't have those mines. Well, guess what? Talk about copper mine. Guess where they have some of the largest copper mines in production? New Mexico. Guess who owns that company? An American company. So maybe if we said, China, you can't come in here and take advantage of these things, we'd have American companies coming in and taking advantage. How about that? That would make so much sense. And, in this room last year, I asked Secretary Burgum if he would support legislation to stop foreign adversaries from getting our critical minerals for free. And he said, and I quote, "I don't think we should be allowing foreign adversaries to mine critical minerals in our country," close quote. Well, I agree with Secretary Burgum. We should not allow foreign adversaries to mine our critical minerals, and this is a step that we could take to prevent that. Why do you want to give them every little advantage possible? We should, every time there is an advantage, say no. But this administration is constantly giving our foreign adversaries benefits. Trump's tariffs have been great for China, right? Everybody has to acknowledge that. China is in a much stronger position on a range of issues because of Trump. Trump just lifted the sanctions against Russia. So Russia is able to deliver its oil outside of the sanctions. Billions of dollars are going to flow to Russia. And they might say, oh, because of the war. Well, he shouldn't have started that war in the first place. And I think that it is about time that we say we're not going to continue to give benefits to our foreign adversaries, and we're going to finally say no. And I'm going to say it again. This wasn't my idea. This wasn't my idea. This was Chairman Molinar from the Select Committee on the CCP. It was your colleague. It was a committee that was set up to look at how do we limit China's influence. And you were saying no to their resolution. I think that it's about time that we say no to the country whose satellites are boosting Iran's war effort. If there ever was a time to say no to China, it would be now. Their satellites are helping Iran target our assets. Regardless of whether you think that war should have been started, and I don't think it should, I think it's hurting Americans, we should at least not help the country that's helping our enemy. And with that, Mr. Chair, I urge a yes vote this 7th time on my amendment to limit China's influence in our mining. And I yield back, exactly on time.
The gentlelady yields back. I recognize myself. I oppose the amendment, but maybe to the gentlelady's surprise, I don't oppose what Secretary Burgum said. I don't oppose what Mr. Molinar has reported, and I don't oppose your position either, Ms. Ledger-Fernandez. But this amendment would insert a definition for foreign entity of concern and restrict such entities from undertaking priority mining projects under the bill. The reason we don't need this amendment is because this has already been taken care of through an act of Congress. Congress has addressed the issue through previous legislation and has passed well-considered restrictions on Chinese ownership. Additionally, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, or CFIUS, already reviews foreign investments in American businesses to assess any national security risk. This section, area of legislation is actually not even in the committee jurisdiction of natural resources, and what this amendment would do would create an ambiguous and untested standard that could inadvertently prevent non-Chinese publicly traded companies from mining domestically. And it could be easily manipulated by the Chinese Communist Party by, if we set some limit of 10% ownership in a publicly traded company, they could go buy 10.1% and disqualify an American company from mining in the U.S. And as I stated, this has already been taken care of with CFIUS, and it's not in our jurisdiction. I oppose the amendment, and I yield back. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Mr. Huffman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, to use a Trump term, that was quite a weave. We heard about committee jurisdiction, and it's sort of been addressed elsewhere. and a few other things and a little bit of hand waving, all to oppose a common sense, straightforward amendment, which if it's already been addressed, what's the problem of just making it really clear in this bill? I mean, our colleagues are telling us that they don't want to keep giving away our critical minerals to our adversaries who may have an equity stake in these mining companies. Why not just shut that down right here in a clear and specific way? We can do that. That is within our jurisdiction because this bill is before our committee right now. So I don't understand this whole weaving, hand-waving reluctance, and I think it speaks to the bigger problem that Ranking Member Leger-Fernandez has been trying to address. Without an amendment like this, these giveaways that we keep offering up to the mining industry are not being tough on China. That's just sloganeering. We just hear slogan after slogan about confronting China, but in reality, if you look what's actually going to happen with these giveaways to the mining industry, it's a gift to China. I mean, the People's Republic of China should be co-sponsoring this legislation without the amendment that the ranking member from New Mexico is proposing. So I want to commend the gentlelady for continuing to bring this up, for continuing to call out this weird bromance that the majority seems to have with the People's Republic of China as they offer these slogans about confronting China as an adversary. It's a charade unless they're willing to vote for a straightforward, common sense amendment like this. And I wonder if I could just yield the balance of my time to the gentlelady from New Mexico.
Well, I think you could, and I do appreciate it, so thank you. So I want to get to the pretzel. We just saw the pretzel, right? We saw them try to explain why they can't do this now. We are Congress. We write the laws. If you're unwilling to write a law that says China doesn't get to take advantage of our mineral resources, and every time we pass a law that fast tracks or gives another benefit to a mining company, we should at the very least not make it applicable if China has a major role. And to say it's been taken care of, let's look at Rio Tinto. The Republicans set it up so Rio Tinto could operate a copper mine in Arizona. We fought it on lots of different issues. It happened before I got here, so I wasn't able to offer this amendment. But Rio Tinto is the largest shareholder. This isn't just a small stake. The largest shareholder in Rio Tinto is China, a Chinese corporation. So this is not being taken care of, and until we say it will apply here, it will apply every single time we get there, and yes, we can draft it in a manner that makes sense, and what a company can do is say, we're not allowing interests. You are not allowed to buy a stake in our company if you're from one of our adversaries. We do that all the time. We do that all the time on other areas where we say it is if national security interest, China doesn't get to get an interest. So it's not like we don't have jurisdiction. We are Congress, and we can say we're going to make this happen. We can go and have a conversation with any other committee that happens. We do that all the time. So it is only the Republican unwillingness to constrain China that has led to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 votes. 7 votes against limiting China's interest in our precious and essential minerals. And with that, I yield back my time. Thank you.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman yields back. Is there further discussion on the amendment?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fulcher, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I need to just respectfully disagree with the ranking member and my friend from New Mexico. And I'll share what I can. There's been numerous hearings, bipartisan hearings, both in another committee in a classified setting as well. And I believe your premise is wrong. Part of what you had said And the premise for this is the Chinese economy is doing well as a function of these tariffs, and it is not doing well. They are bleeding economically, including seeing the migration of a lot of their businesses going into Vietnam, Cambodia, Malaysia. And it is a function of the trade situation with the U.S. It's causing that. As a function of that, because of that compression, they're starting to lever things that they hold over our head economically. And I can't go into detail here, but you can see the same things that we were able to see. But I can say in general sense, what is commonly known is they do hold the monopoly on some of these critical minerals, and they're holding that over our head. We have to do something about that. We just have to, we can't let them control. And by the way, before you say anything, it's not just critical minerals, it's pharmaceuticals, there's other areas as well. We are vulnerable. And to make the argument that we're not is just false. And so I would encourage you to look further before you pursue that line of reasoning, because it's just not accurate. And I'll yield.
Well, yeah, thank you. I think I agree with you. I mean,
Well, that's not what you said. You just got done saying the Chinese economy is doing wonderful as a function of these tariffs. It is not. They are bleeding economically over there.
The point I was making, the point of my amendment is that we should not be giving China more control, that we should be limiting their control. So to make your point, like we need to pull back, and in places that we can control, that we should not be allowing China to take the minerals from the United States, to have a stake in the companies that mine here. So your point is we should be limiting them, so on and so forth. You took something I said on my outline.
My point is we need to be enabling the American industry, and that's what the base legislation helps do.
Well,
And whether it's permitting or whether that's encouraging with incentives or whatever, but we've got to have control within American boundaries of our own destiny, and we don't have that today.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, is that within our boundaries, within the United States, we should say companies that mine here, that we give benefits to, that we give fast track, that we say you can come mine, they should not be China. That's what I'm saying. They should be American. Like the company that mines in New Mexico, they should be American, or at the very least, if they're not going to be American, then their owners should not be China. They should be Europe and Canada and Australia.
And I thank you, but we're claiming my time. Mr. Chairman, my point remains the same, and I appreciate the dialogue, and I think there's some common ground on that front. But the bottom line is that we have a very significant adversary, and we are being constrained, or threatened is a better way to put it. And so to the extent we can empower and incentivize our own domestic production and processing, as Mr. Stauber said a little bit earlier, the better off we're going to be. When I go back.
Mr. Fulcher, there's trying to be a premise made here that there's no restrictions on Chinese ownership in U.S. companies, and that's just not true. There's the CFIUS out there that regulates and restricts Chinese investment in U.S. companies. It's a problem that already has a solution, and this seems to be a solution in search of a problem. And I think everybody on the committee agrees we don't want Chinese companies mining U.S. Minerals, and there's a way to restrict that currently. And putting legislation in this bill and other bills only confuses what's already in the law. Would you agree with that?
I concur, and for that reason and others, I oppose the amendment. Thank you. I yield.
The gentleman yields back. Is there further discussion? Ms. Stansberry, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm honestly a little bit surprised by the debate this morning. When I first arrived here in Congress in 2021, we took a series of votes about whether or not foreign-owned companies should be able to buy American private property. We're talking farmland, water rights. There was a whole series of votes, and Republicans unanimously voted that foreign entities should not be able to purchase private property in the United States. And so what I can't understand in the year 2026 is why we're having a debate about giving our public lands to foreign companies. Like, that's outrageous and completely inconsistent with your own policy platform. I mean, it's just very, very strange. So I don't understand the argument, and the fact that we're sitting in the Natural Resources Committee, where our congressional responsibility is to protect the nation's public lands for the American people, that we are actually having a discussion where you all are arguing that we should not ban foreign-owned companies from mining and having a fast track on American public lands. That's outrageous. And I think the American people would clearly see that is not America first. There's nothing about this that is America first. Now, I understand the national security arguments. I understand the arguments for needing resources in the United States for our own industrial and national security base. But selling them off on our public lands to China and to foreign-owned companies is not how we do that. That's not America first. And I want to just take a moment with the ranking member to discuss not just the implications for our economy, but the fact that this is being done on the backs of our people, on our communities, on lands that are sacred to our communities. And I want to talk about two mines that are particularly sacred to New Mexicans. One is Oak Flat, which is a mine we've already discussed here today. But that is not only sacred land to Apache people in Arizona, it's sacred land to the Mescalero Apache people in my district, to Jicarilla in Congresswoman Ledger Fernandez's district. And the company that has the largest stake in that copper mine is predominantly associated with the Chinese Communist Party. And Donald Trump is over there giving it away. Now, there was legislation that passed through this Congress before we were serving, which we just said, and certainly we would have fought like hell to stop that. But now we see the Trump administration, and I think this goes to the point that was just made about, well, the law already protects against this, just a few days ago announced that they were going to remove protections that were put in place a couple of years ago for the Upper Pecos watershed in Congresswoman Ledger Fernandez's district to stop a foreign mine from strip mining one of our most important mountains in New Mexico. And so, Congresswoman, this is in your district, but of course it's a mountain that is important to all of our communities, both to our traditional Spanish communities, our Pueblo communities, and the people who live in the Pecos watershed. Talk about the human and environmental toll of allowing foreign companies to do this.
Well, what we remember is that when mining corporations mined there before, they left a mess. And when you have a mess, and this was the point with Representative Stauber, the Pecos. Everybody has heard about the Pecos, right? Because it's in all that folklore. Guess where it flows from? It flows down from the Pecos Mountains. It flows into communities that farm and ranch. It is key to agriculture all the way through as it gets into Texas and eventually hits the Gulf. So whenever you have contamination and pollution flowing into waters, those are not limited. And they literally devastate a community that loses all of its tourism dollars, it loses its farming dollars, it loses its agriculture dollars. It destroys an economy as well as a culture.
And so I guess what I would say here is that if the law is already designed to stop foreign mining companies from coming into our communities and strip mining them to take the profits elsewhere, then why on earth is Donald Trump allowing a mining claim to go forward in the Pecos in New Mexico for a foreign mining company? Clearly, the law is not protecting us. And so I just want to end here by saying, save the Pecos.
Ladies, time has expired. Is there further discussion? Mr. Magaziner, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just say briefly, I don't know why our Republican colleagues don't just support this. They keep saying they agree that we shouldn't be allowing the Chinese Communist Party, the Chinese government, to take ownership of American resources, particularly critical resources. They haven't presented an argument for why that should be allowed, so why not just vote for this? It seems to me that the only reason is that it's a Democrat who introduced the amendment, but it's a good amendment. And I will say, and it's been alluded to before, in the last Congress, when President Biden was in office, we voted on dozens of bills and amendments to limit the influence of the Chinese Communist Party in the United States. I voted for some of those bills, by the way. We voted on dozens of bills to restrict ownership of farmland and critical infrastructure, ports, and all the rest. That's all stopped under this Congress. What's changed? Well, now President Trump is in office. And what is President Trump doing? He just authorized a sale of advanced AI chips to China at the same time that they are engaging in cyber warfare against the United States. This is a let's make a deal administration. And unfortunately, the people on the losing end of that deal are the American people, over and over again. We all know this is wrong. My Republican colleagues can't present a coherent argument for why they shouldn't support this amendment to limit Chinese ownership of our mines. So let's just vote for it. Who cares that it's a Democratic amendment? Let's just do it. And with that, I'll yield the balance of my time to the sponsor.
Thank you very much, Representative Magaziner. Yes, let's just vote for it. You say you're for it, let's just vote for it. But I wanted to ask the chairman, you say this matter is taken care of, and we do have a mine, the Resolution copper mine. And I was wondering if you would support, so we could determine whether this issue is taken care of, would you support a Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S. review of the Resolution copper mine so we could see if this is a problem or not?
Again, that's out of this committee jurisdiction. I believe the Committee on Foreign Investments in the U.S. is already looking at all these Chinese ownerships. If you look at the purpose of that committee, it's to protect investments in America from foreign investments, and that's what they're charged with doing, and I trust they're doing that. I think the particular company that you're talking about has been operating in the U.S. for a long, long time, and as has been mentioned, that mine was begun long before we started discussing it in here since we've been in Congress, but I think that also shows why we need more rapid permitting process so that these issues don't get drug out for decades. But yeah, I'm for CFIUS. I'm for scrutinizing Chinese investments. The amendment that you're proposing would actually incentivize Chinese investments above the whatever limits you set to stop American companies from mining. If CFIUS does their job, they will be able to take on all the national security risk in analyzing those investments. And that's in the Department of Treasury. That's not in our jurisdiction, and I trust that they're doing their job well.
So I think that we serve in Congress, and our jurisdiction is protecting the interests of the United States. And as members of Congress, and indeed as chairs of the very powerful committee of the House Natural Resources, asking these questions, since there is such intense debate on them, is something that we all have authority to do. I would hope that you would support something like that. And, I think that we need to get to the bottom of this. You can't keep saying it's not a problem, but then refuse to ask for the information that would indicate whether it is. And once again, if Chinese companies don't get the benefit of these laws and these goodies we're sending to them, then we can say, you cannot invest in this company, you cannot invest, and we'll have more American ownership. And I think that's what I thought we all agreed on, that we wanted more American ownership. This is one way of getting there. And with that, thank you very much for the time, Representative Magaziner. Thank you for your comments. I yield back.
Time's expired. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Mr. Hurd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We will respectfully be opposing this amendment for a couple reasons, and I've been asked by my colleagues why. And a few things. First, without commenting specifically on what the law is right now, I read through the amendment, Representative Ledger Fernandez, and the 10% threshold, I have some concerns about the definitions and how broad that is. 10% ownership, it's not just ownership that we're talking about, or control. It's also financing, whether tied directly or indirectly to a covered nation. In global capital markets, that is very low, and I'm concerned about the depth and breadth of the amendment. It doesn't target just control, it's targeting any connection, no matter how minor. And I'm worried that it might be penalizing projects that are trying to reduce our dependence on China. Many U.S. mining and processing companies rely on foreign capital, technical partnerships, and equipment supply chains. And even projects that are explicitly designed to compete with China could be disqualified if they have indirect exposure. And so the language is just very capacious in there. And I guess the last thing I would say is if we're trying to build supply chains outside of China, I worry that this would risk shutting down the very types of projects that are doing that. So with that, Ms. Ledger Fernandez, I would respectfully
Mr. Hurd,
oppose
would you yield?
Yes, I'm happy to. It's very
So, I think I'm very open to having the discussions, and we have reached out numerous times to committee to say, do you want to work with us on it? And I'll be honest, this language came out of the select committee. It came out of the select committee. Came out of the Republican. Came up with this, and I'm very willing if you would work with me on some amendments to address your concerns. I'd be very, very open to doing a secondary amendment and looking at how do we address some of those concerns. If we got agreement that this is bad, and if the committee would be willing to say, well, if we did this or that, but every single time we are simply told, no, not now, it doesn't work. And I think that addressing some concerns of does this, do we put some timelines? Do we look at the expansion? Once again, this came out of not my head. It's the committee that was concerned about the CCP. It's their ideas.
Understood. Whatever the provenance is, I'm certainly, personally speaking for myself, happy to discuss this. Maybe not in this context, but in a way that makes sense. I'm just telling you, reading the amendment, it's extraordinarily capacious, and with that, that's the reason I'm opposing it.
I look forward to working on something that we could perhaps present at the Wills Committee. I happen to know, I know I'm going to be there.
Okay, well, good. Well, just so that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle know that there are reasonable and substantive reasons that we are, that I at least am going to be opposing the amendment. So thank you with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Gentleman yields back. Ms. Grijalva, you're recognized.
This is a really interesting discussion because I serve on education and workforce, and we had a presentation literally the discussion was keeping China out of our schools. So I find it interesting that we don't want China involved in different aspects. Different committees are working on different legislation, and in this committee, we're talking about a gift to China. I'm trying to figure it out and make it make sense sort of moment that I'm having. But I think that when we talk about the influence of this fast track, when we talk about what that looks like, I think that we are prioritizing, the public health and safety of communities before really thinking about what the consequences are big picture. I obviously am going to support this amendment, and if Ms. Ledger Fernandez wants any more of my time, if you're done, all right, I'll yield back. Thanks.
Gentlelady yields back. Is there further discussion on the amendment? There's no further discussion. The question is on the amendment offered by Ms. Ledger Fernandez, designated Ledger Fernandez number 1. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. A recorded vote has been requested. Further proceedings on the amendment will be postponed. We will now consider the amendment designated Grijalva number 3 offered by the gentlewoman from Arizona, Ms. Grijalva. Without objection, the amendment is considered read. Ms. Grijalva, you are now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My amendment to H.R. 1501 would require robust, meaningful, and enforceable consultation with tribal nations before implementation of any mining projects that may impact their lands, rights, and resources. This amendment ensures that the federal agencies uphold the United States trust and treaty obligations by engaging in intentional and substantive consultation with tribal governments. It makes clear that consultation is not a procedural checkbox, but a meaningful government-to-government dialogue. This amendment proposes that no mining project can be considered for expedited permitting unless tribes have been engaged since the earliest possible stages of the project's development. This issue has become increasingly relevant in my district, given the Hermosa project in the Patagonia Mountains, southeast of Tucson, Arizona. Its designation as the first critical minerals project under Fast 41 highlights the growing use of expediting permit frameworks. While Fast 41 is intended to improve efficiency, mining is among the most environmentally consequential sectors it covers. As such, expedited timelines must not come at the expense of meaningful public participation or environmental assessment. We have already seen the consequences of insufficient engagement and analysis. The town of Patagonia formally requested a comprehensive groundwater study of the Patagonia Mountains from the Coronado National Forest in both 2020 and 2021, specifically citing concerns related to the proposed Hermosa project. Despite these repeated requests and the support of my favorite Congressman Raul Grijalva, the study was never completed. For that exact reason, I sent a letter to the U.S. Forest Service just last week to follow up on that same request. This gap leaves significant uncertainty about the potential impacts to groundwater and undermines the public confidence in the adequacy of a review process. When I met with local leaders and community members in Patagonia just a couple weeks ago, they raised the serious concerns about their drinking water, their health, and the long-term sustainability of their aquifers. These concerns are not abstract. They reflect lived experience and legitimate questions that deserve answers before, not after, decisions are made. What these experiences make clear is that communities closest to these projects cannot be left to react once decisions are already in motion. They must be engaged from the beginning, with their voices meaningfully incorporated into the decision-making. This amendment does not slow progress, it strengthens it. By ensuring tribal nations and impacted communities have a real seat at the table, we must produce more informed and more mindful policy outcomes. Respecting tribal sovereignty and listening to affected communities is not optional, it's a fundamental obligation. I urge my colleagues to support this amendment and affirm our commitment to honoring tribal nations as equal partners in the decisions that affect our futures. Thank you. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Is there further discussion? Ms. Randall, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, I think most of us support reasonable permitting reform to make sure that critical infrastructure projects back home in our districts can be reviewed and approved in a timely manner, and that our neighbors can actually see the benefits of federal investments. We all want that. The Fast 41 process for reasonable and targeted categories can help achieve that goal, but this bill goes far beyond critical minerals, though we had the chance to limit it under Ranking Member Huffman's amendment. As he said, it would make all mines, including gold and other non-critical minerals, eligible for compressed Fast 41 permitting processes. Mining is a process that already doesn't have strong tribal consultation under current law. Permanently fast-tracking permitting for all mining, regardless of the application or purpose, doesn't serve the needs of our communities, and it certainly doesn't honor our treaty and trust responsibilities with tribal nations. That's why I proudly support Representative Grijalva's amendment to require that all projects undergo meaningful tribal consultation before they're eligible to be covered by this fast-track process. Responsible industry experts publicly acknowledge that early and meaningful engagement with tribes is beneficial to everyone. It avoids long and complicated litigation, it avoids project slowdowns, and it is a way that we uphold our treaty and trust responsibilities. I encourage all of my colleagues to vote yes on this important amendment, and I yield back.
Lady yields back. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Mr. Huffman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I strongly support the gentlelady from Arizona's amendment. Tribes deserve a real say in mining projects that could forever alter or destroy lands that they have stewarded since time immemorial, but unfortunately, back in 1872, we weren't interested in giving tribes that say. We threw the tribes under the bus by passing a law that says that anyone can stake a claim on public minerals and then have a right to mine there. And today, land management agencies say that that law doesn't let them say no to a mine, ever. It just lets them do some things to try to limit the harm from that mine. Even within that fatally flawed framework, though, agencies can and should consult tribes as soon as they become aware of a mining project. And then they should meaningfully incorporate that tribal feedback into the permitting process. But too often, agencies just don't do it. They could do those things, but tribal consultation is often an afterthought or just a box that's checked at the most in the mining permitting process. This amendment would force them to do better. It would force them to take tribal consultation seriously if they want to fast track a mine. From the beginning of the permitting process to the end, that's what we should require, and tribes deserve no less. So I urge support for this amendment and yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Is there further discussion? I recognize myself. Tribal consultation is important, and federal agencies already have consultation requirements in place when tribal resources are affected. I support tribal consultation, but I oppose the amendment because it would simply use tribal consultation to hold projects hostage to vague and undefined consultation requirements before FAST 41 could even apply. Adding additional vague requirements does not improve the consultation process. The amendment uses the phrase meaningful consultation without defining what that requires, and it calls for consultation with tribes that have, quote, historically expressed an interest, end quote, which is not a clear or workable standard. Ambiguity will lead to confusion, disputes, delay, and potential litigation, which indicates this amendment would only serve to slow projects down rather than improve the approval process. Again, I support consultation with tribes. We have a process for consultation with tribes, but this amendment is on the wrong track, and I oppose it. Is there further discussion on the amendment? If there's no further discussion, the question is on the amendment offered by Ms. Grijalva, designated Grijalva number 3. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The opinion of the chair, the noes have it. A recorded vote has been requested. Further proceedings on this amendment will be postponed. Pursuant to the markup notice, it is now in order to consider H.R. 5929, the Critical Mineral Supply Chain Resiliency Act. Ask unanimous consent that the Subcommittee on Energy and Mineral Resources be discharged from further consideration of the bill without objection. So ordered. Without objection, the bill will be considered as read and open to amendment at any point. Does any member wish to be recognized for purpose of debate on the bill? Mr. Huffman, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I oppose H.R. 5929. This is a bill that would automatically make any mining or mineral-related project that receives funds from the Defense Production Act eligible for FAST 41 fast tracking, unless a project sponsor themselves would opt out. We don't need to hand this corrupt administration any more tools right now to rush through their priority projects, which in too many cases we're finding out just coincidentally happen to enrich members of the Trump family and MAGA cronies. We just don't need to do them any more favors and give them any more windfalls. The Defense Production Act is intended to fund projects important to national security. This administration seems to be defining national security as whatever benefits their buddies, whether it's to complete construction of Trump's beloved ballroom so we can have great Gatsby parties, or try to shut down offshore wind, or waive Endangered Species Act requirements for big oil in the Gulf of Mexico. They're using the Defense Production Act to throw billions of dollars at questionable mining projects with close ties to the administration, officials and family members and friends, while waiving important investment transparency requirements. This isn't a simple question of aligning federal permitting practices with federal investment priorities for national security, this administration has made that clear. So I have asked, along with Ranking Member Garcia of the Oversight Committee and Ranking Member Heinrich of the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee, for details on how the administration decided to use the Defense Production Act to take these equity stakes in mines whose major qualifications seem to be simply having Trump connections. We've gotten no response. At this moment of backroom dealing and 14-day so-called emergency permitting, I acknowledge Fast 41 can offer some valuable transparency to the permitting process, but it also offers some shields from judicial review that could become problematic if they're weaponized to protect questionable Trump administration actions, and that is my concern. Even before this administration, tribes from Idaho to Alaska have raised alarms that DPA-funded projects, DPA funding puts the federal government's thumb even more firmly on the side of mining. Many tribal leaders are rightfully skeptical that the federal government will be neutral arbiters and prioritize good government to government consultation when it comes to permitting a mine that the government itself has already heavily invested in. Now is not the time to hand this corrupt administration even more fast-tracking tools, and so I urge opposition to this legislation and yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Is there further discussion? Ms. Randall, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I strongly agree with the ranking member's concern on the Critical Minerals Supply Chain Resiliency Act. What I hear from neighbors over and over in my community is that they want our government to look out for their interests, not the interests of the wealthy and well-connected. And while President Trump promised that he'd look out for working class families and everyday Americans while he was on the campaign trail, what we've seen 16 months into his term is that costs are going up, and our neighbors can tell you that life is getting harder. At every opportunity, when it comes to choosing the American people or choosing the 1%, this president chooses his billionaire buddies. The Defense Production Act is an important tool and is intended to protect our national security. But under this administration, what we've seen is arguably the opposite. In August of 2025, 1789 Capital, which Donald Trump Jr. is a named partner act, took an ownership stake in Vulcan Elements. And he went out of his way to tell the media that he is very involved in strategic decisions at the firm. Fast forward 3 months, and the Trump administration commits $620 million to Vulcan Elements through the Pentagon. What folks back home may not know is that this is the single ever largest Office of Strategic Capital loan, and it was made without competitive procurement and without the technical disclosures normally required before public funds are committed. I would argue, and I think most Americans would argue, that funneling government contracts through the Defense Production Act to companies that the president's family has a stake in weakens our national security rather than strengthening it. Every day, the Trump family gets wealthier, while my neighbors lose their rights, lose their health care, and lose hope for a better future for their kids. My constituent Edward from Port Townsend told me that Congress should follow the money in conducting oversight of this administration's corrupt activities. Aaron from Port Orchard said he's concerned that naked corruption for personal gain is happening in our federal government. I'm concerned too, Aaron. The Trump administration is already cutting corners by giving out these questionable contracts, and this bill would help them further cut those corners. That's why I'll be voting against the bill, and I urge my colleagues to do the same, and I yield back.
The lady yields back. Is there further discussion on the legislation? I recognize myself. I support Representative Barr's legislation, which is aimed at strengthening our national security while or through minimizing our dependence on foreign nations for critical minerals and using the Defense Production Act for doing that. Also ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter from the National Mining Association supporting H.R. 1501 and H.R. 1529. The letter states, quote, "At a time when energy and mineral demand is soaring, we need reliable supply chains that deliver for our nation's economy now and into the future. To support these supply chains, we need the clarity and regulatory certainty the mining industry depends on to make generational investments," end quote. The letter demonstrates broad support among industry for these common sense reforms, which will allow us to unleash American mining. Without objection, so ordered. Is there any further discussion on the legislation? If there's no further discussion on the bill, it's now in order to consider amendments to H.R. 5929, and we will consider the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 5929 offered by myself, designated Westerman 67 A&S. Without objection, the amendment is considered read and open to amendment at any point. I now recognize myself. I urge my colleagues to support this A&S, which makes minor technical changes to the bill, and to support the underlying legislation. I again want to emphasize the importance of the legislation. Long ago, this country recognized that expanding its domestic industrial capabilities is essential to maintaining an effective national defense. But overly burdensome permitting processes have accumulated over intervening decades and are preventing the Secretary of War from fully using the authority already granted to him. Accordingly, this bill makes common sense changes to ensure that the actions authorized under the Defense Production Act of 1950 are also eligible for the Fast 41 expedited permitting process. The simple but effective change will bolster America's economic and national security. I urge my colleagues to support the A&S and the underlying bill, and I yield back. Is there further discussion on the A&S? There's no further discussion on the A&S. It's now in order to consider amendments to the A&S to H.R. 5929. And we will now consider the amendment designated Grijalva number 1, offered by the gentlewoman from Arizona, Ms. Grijalva. Without objection, the amendment is considered read, and Ms. Grijalva, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I offer an amendment to H.R. 5929 that would automatically make renewable energy projects eligible for expedited permitting procedures. As written, H.R. 5929 would automatically fast-track permitting for any mine that receives funding from the Defense Production Act. In recent years, particularly under the Trump administration, the Defense Production Act has been used to direct significant federal investments into mining projects under the justification of supporting defense and military supply. Some of these projects have been paired with expedited or prioritized permitting decisions, raising concern that federal funding is being used to accelerate extractive development without sufficient oversight, environmental review, or community input. H.R. 5929 would automatically treat all DPA actions to expand domestic production of so-called critical minerals as covered projects under Fast 41, subjecting them to expedited permitting. In practice, this further accelerates an already fast-tracked mining approvals tied to federal investments. We are seeing permitting timelines under emergency procedures compressed to as little as 14 to 28 days, with limited environmental review and severely restricted public participation and tribal consultation. Compared to those emergency processes, Fast 41 may offer more structure and transparency, but that is not the standard we should accept for decisions with long-term impacts on land, water, and public health. As I mentioned in my previous statement, the Hermosa mine in Patagonia Mountains of southern Arizona illustrates what's at stake. Local leaders and community members have raised serious concerns about potential impacts to groundwater, water quality, and public health. The town of Patagonia formally requested a comprehensive groundwater study years ago, and those calls have been echoed by members of Congress, including my late father, Congressman Grijalva. Yet the study has not been completed. Moving forward with accelerated permitting in the absence of this basic analysis only deepens uncertainty and undermines public trust. In contrast to the rush to permit large-scale extractive projects, this administration has arbitrarily brought solar and wind permitting to near complete stop. Renewable energies like solar, wind, and geothermal provide real energy security and resilience while reducing environmental harm and strengthening long-term sustainability. These types of projects are much better suited to the Fast 41 permitting structure and are badly in need of transparency it would provide. I urge my colleagues to support this amendment and affirm our commitment to honoring renewable energy alternatives that will ensure a more sustainable future. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Is there further discussion on the amendment? Mr. Huffman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I strongly support Representative Grijalva's amendment. This administration is fast-tracking, creating a so-called emergency permitting process, 14-day process for projects in many cases that are enormously environmentally destructive and don't seem to meet any of our national security concerns, don't really represent the kind of projects that we say we need in this country, but they do tend to invariably have investment connections to Trump family members and cronies. The system is being gamed. This so-called emergency permitting process is being used to enrich people, not to help build the things we need in this country. And meanwhile, the things we really do need, solar and wind energy projects that could bring down energy prices for struggling families in this country, because we acknowledge the reality of the affordability crisis in America. Those projects are being shut down in every possible way. We just learned this week that Donald Trump is paying $1 billion to buy out a huge offshore wind lease, just lighting $1 billion of taxpayer money on fire to prevent a French company, Total, from building an offshore wind energy project that could bring abundant, affordable, clean, renewable energy to the East Coast. It is one exercise after another in corruption, and this amendment would set it straight. Look, we acknowledge that Fast 41 brings some transparency benefits to the permitting process. The posted timelines for fast-track permitting could be a great thing for projects we actually need, like wind and solar. So that's what this amendment does. It would make them eligible for that. What a great idea. I strongly support the amendment and yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Is there further discussion? I recognize myself. I do oppose the amendment. I'm for speeding up the permitting process for all projects, but this bill changes this amendment would change the purpose of the bill from promoting domestic mining to streamlining renewable energy project approval. However, it's unnecessary because renewable energy projects are already considered projects under the FAST Act, giving them access to the streamlined permitting that we want to see for minerals. For too long, overburdensome regulatory processes have delayed the development of the minerals necessary to power everything from energy transmission lines to national defense system. Given the minerals necessary to manufacture renewable energy technologies, it's surprising that anyone would be opposed to the development of American mineral supply chains. Again, I urge my colleagues to oppose this amendment, and I yield back. Is there further discussion on the amendment? We're now, if there's no further discussion, the question is on the amendment offered by Ms. Grijalva, designated Grijalva number 1. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. A recorded vote is requested. Further proceedings on this amendment will be postponed. Okay, we're going to recess until approximately 1:10 p.m. 1:10. That's good staff work when they can predict it that accurately. But there will be a notice sent out when we will reconvene for votes. The meeting is in recess. The committee will come to order. The chair notes the presence of a quorum. The unfinished business is on the request for a recorded vote on amendments to the ANS to HR 1501. Members will record their votes using the electronic voting system. The question is on the amendment to the ANS HR 1501 offered by Ranking Member Huffman, designated Huffman number 2, on which the noes prevailed by voice vote. The clerk will open the vote.
Always has this first vote lag. There it goes, okay. Now it'll be fast.
Yeah, once it gets... Have all members voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Hearing none, the clerk will close the vote and report.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the yeas are 16 and the nays are 18.
The amendment is not agreed to. The question is on the amendment to the ANS to HR 1501 offered by the gentlewoman from New Mexico, Ms. Ledger Fernandez, designated Ledger Fernandez number 1, on which the noes prevailed by voice vote. The clerk will open the vote.
That instant. Super fast.
It is crazy how it does that.
Have all members voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? The clerk will close the vote and report.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the yeas are 17 and the nays are 19.
The amendment is not agreed to. The question is on the amendment to the ANS to HR 1501 offered by the gentlewoman from Arizona, Ms. Grijalva, designated Grijalva number 3, on which the noes prevailed by voice vote. The clerk will open the vote. Have all members voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? The clerk will close the vote and report.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the yeas are 17 and the nays are 20.
The amendment is not agreed to. The question now occurs on the amendment in the nature of a substitute to HR 1501 offered by the chair, designated Westerman 66 ANS. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment in the nature of a substitute is adopted. The question now occurs on reporting HR 1501 as amended to the House with the recommendation that the bill be favorably approved. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. A recorded vote has been requested. Members will record their vote using the electronic voting system. The clerk will open the vote. Have all members voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Hearing none, the clerk will close the vote and report.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the yeas are 21 and the nays are 16.
The bill as amended is ordered reported to the House with the recommendation that it be favorably approved. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The unfinished business is on the request for recorded vote on the amendments to the ANS to H.R. 5929. Again, members will record their votes using the electronic voting system. The question is on the amendment to the ANS to H.R. 5929 offered by the gentlewoman from Arizona, Ms. Grijalva, designated Grijalva number 1, on which the noes prevail by voice vote. The clerk will open the vote. Have all members voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Hearing none, the clerk will close the vote and report.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the yeas are 16 and the nays are 21.
The amendment is not agreed to. The question now occurs on the amendment in the nature of a substitute to H.R. 5929, offered by the chair, designated Westerman 67 ANS. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. In opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment in the nature of a substitute is adopted. The question now occurs on reporting H.R. 5229 as amended to the House with the recommendation that the bill be favorably approved. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. In opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The bill is ordered reported without objection. The bill is amended as ordered reported to the House with the recommendation that it be favorably approved without objection. The motion to reconsider is laid on the table. We now turn to the UC package with the cooperation of Ranking Member Huffman and the other members of the committee. It appears that we have worked out an agreement on 6 bills scheduled for markup today. As we've done before, rather than going through a formal markup process for each of the bills, I will make a single unanimous consent motion to report out the bills favorably with any amendments that have been filed and agreed to. Before we begin, does any member seek time to speak on any of the bills in this unanimous consent motion? Ms. Sansbury, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Huffman. I want to just take a moment to say thank you to the entire committee for your unanimous support for our 2 New Mexico bills. This is a big day for New Mexico and for our communities, and we are so grateful for the bipartisan support of these 2 bills in committee today. H.R. 6162 is the Albuquerque Indian School Act, which will transfer almost 10 acres of land to the Pueblo Cultural Center in Albuquerque, which was established in 1884 as part of the Federal Indian School in our great city. The bill will transfer this land into trust for the benefit of the 19 Pueblos who govern the Pueblo Cultural Center, which has transformed this entire area and our community into a hub for cultural, educational, economic, and community development, while centering the resilience, the leadership, and the self-determination of our Pueblos. The second bill we passed here today unanimously is H.R. 4290, the Downwinder Commemoration Act, which is led by my colleague Gabe Vasquez and also co-sponsored, like both of these bills, by Congresswoman Ledger Fernandez. This recognizes a painful chapter in our nation's history when the U.S. tested its first atomic bomb at the Trinity site in New Mexico in the Tularosa Basin. Communities like Carrizozo, Tularosa, and communities for miles experience nuclear fallout that has caused generations of cancer and disease. This is a long overdue acknowledgement of both the suffering but the resilience of our communities and reaffirms our responsibility as a federal government to care for those affected by the federal government's action. This follows on the reauthorization and expansion of RECA to ensure that our families and our communities are able to access care, in which Congresswoman Ledger Fernandez led for a number of years. Together, these bills reflect a broader principle. The stewardship of our public lands and resources must also include the stewardship of our shared history and the acknowledgement of our communities. I want to say thank you to Mr. Chairman, to your staff, to the ranking member and his staff, and to the Department of Interior and its leadership for helping to support New Mexico today. These bills are deeply meaningful for our communities, and we thank you all. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Is there further discussion?
Mr. Mr.
Ms.
Chair,
Leisure Fernandez, you're recognized.
I do want to echo, and I won't add much to the comments, but I do want to echo our appreciation for you, for your staff, and for the entire committee for agreeing to move these. I know this is a lot of work for your staff as you consider these, and I'm very grateful. It is so very important to our state. So muchísimas gracias. Thank you.
Young lady yields back. Is there further discussion? Mr. Magaziner, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very excited that there are two bills in this unanimous consent package for which I'm the lead Democratic sponsor and very strongly in support. The first is the Bipartisan Fish Act, introduced along with Representative Crenshaw and Begich. International illegal fishing undercuts law-abiding American fishermen and seafood producers, including those that I represent in Rhode Island. The fishermen and the fishing industry that I represent in my state isn't asking for any special treatment. They're just asking for a level playing field. And we need to level the playing field by cracking down on bad actors who break the rules, who don't abide by quotas, who don't follow environmental regulations, who engage in slave labor and other abuses. The Fish Act will allow us to crack down on illegal international fishing by blacklisting offending vessels from U.S. ports and waters, bolstering the Coast Guard's enforcement capabilities, and directing the President to impose sanctions on entities that participate in illegal fishing. By strengthening U.S. enforcement against illegal international fishing, the Fish Act will protect our oceans, our coastal economies, and our consumers. I'd also like to thank the committee and the chair and the ranking member for advancing the American Battlefield Protection Program Amendments Act, for which I'm the Democratic lead along with the lead sponsor, Representative Kiggins. I'm also a proud co-chair along with Rep. Kiggins on the Congressional Battlefield Caucus. The American Battlefield Protection Program Amendments Act will ensure that future generations can experience and learn from and honor our nation's sacred grounds. This is not just about preserving our history, it's about preserving our sense of patriotism and unity as a nation and inspiring future generations with the stories of those who sacrificed in order to make our country and our democracy and our freedom possible. This bill will reauthorize the American Battlefield Protection Program through 2035, authorize funding, and reduce the non-federal match so that communities can more easily participate in this program. Once again, I want to thank my colleagues on both sides of the aisle for supporting this legislation, and with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Is there further discussion? I ask unanimous consent that the Subcommittee on Energy and Mineral Resources be discharged from further consideration of H.R. 1687, the Committing Leases for Energy Access Now Act, or the CLEAN Act, without objection. So ordered. I ask unanimous consent that the Subcommittee on Water, Wildlife, and Fisheries be discharged from further consideration of H.R. 3756, the Fighting Foreign Illegal Seafood Harvest Act of 2025, or the Fish Act of 2025, without objection. So ordered. I ask unanimous consent that the Subcommittee on Indian and Insular Affairs be discharged from further consideration of H.R. 6162, the Albuquerque Indian School Act of 2025, without objection. So ordered. I ask unanimous consent that the Subcommittee on Federal Lands be discharged from further consideration of H.R. 4290, the Downwinder Commemoration Act of 2025, H.R. 5911, the Crystal Reservoir Conveyance Act, and H.R. 7618, the American Battlefield Protection Program Amendments Act of 2026, without objection. So ordered. I now ask unanimous consent that the following measures be approved and favorably reported as described to the House of Representatives: H.R. 1687, the Committing Leases for Energy Access Now Act, or the CLEAN Act, with an amendment in the nature of a substitute offered by the gentleman from Idaho, Mr. Fulcher, designated Fulcher 1A and S. H.R. 3756, the Fighting Foreign Illegal Seafood Harvest Act of 2025, or the Fish Act of 2025, with an amendment in the nature of a substitute offered by the chair, designated Westerman 68A and S. H.R. 4290, the Downwinder Commemoration Act of 2025, with an amendment in the nature of a substitute offered by the gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Neguse, designated Neguse 213A and S. H.R. 5911, the Crystal Reservoir Conveyance Act, with an amendment in the nature of a substitute offered by the gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Hurd, designated Hurd, A&S. H.R. 6162, the Albuquerque Indian School Act of 2025, with an amendment in the nature of a substitute offered by the gentlewoman from New Mexico, Ms. Stansberry, designated Stansberry, 71 A&S. H.R. 7618, the American Battlefield Protection Program Amendments Act of 2026, with an amendment in the nature of a substitute offered by the gentlewoman from Virginia, Ms. Kiggins, designated Kiggins, 143 A&S. Without objection, so ordered. Without objection, the motions to reconsider are laid upon the table. Mr. Huffman, did you have an announcement?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I give notice of my intention to file supplemental, additional, dissenting, or minority views on the measure just considered. I ask unanimous consent that this notice be extended to all measures considered at the markup. Under House Rule 11, Clause 2L, this notice extends to all members.
Without objection, so ordered. If there's no further business, I ask unanimous consent that the staff be allowed to make any technical and conforming changes to the documents the committee just adopted, subject to the approval of the minority. Without objection, so ordered. And if there's no further business, the committee stands adjourned.